What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my NFL playoff power rankings. As we jump into wildcard weekend, we're going to have a lot of good matchups. But before we get into it, subscribe to the channel down below to be entered into our giveaway. 32 through 25 here, all the teams that were at the bottom of the barrel this year. Panthers, Commanders, Patriots, and the Chargers. All four of those teams are looking for new head coaches this year, so they're going to start their search. Falcons as well, they are going to start their search, and maybe the Patriots get a new coach, I guess, because Bill Belichick is still up in the air. But then you have the Jets, Cardinals, and Giants looking towards next year and adding some pieces to possibly turn it around. 24th through 15, some teams here that just missed out on the playoffs and got hot at the right time, but just couldn't get a few wins when they needed them the most. And those teams are the Bears, the Bengals, and the Jaguars. Jaguars really started off hot and fell very bad down here to 17. They were top 10 for a good amount of time, but they just couldn't figure it out. Colts, if they would have beat the Texans, they would have got in and won the AFC South and would have been the 4 seed. Saints, they needed a Packers and Seahawks loss to get in or a Bucs loss to get in. That didn't happen. Then the Bengals got eliminated in week 17. So these teams were just all pretty close here. Besides the Titans and the Vikings, these teams were very close to making the playoffs, but they'll look to next year. 14 are the Eagles, and they're 1-5 in their last 6 games. I don't know what team I'm going to see here for Philly. Is it going to be the team that's went 1-5 the last 6 games, or is it going to be the 10-1 team that we saw at the beginning of the year? And if that's the case, let's say they lose. Is Nick Sirianni on the hot seat to possibly get fired? I don't think so, but it is a question that has to be asked. 13 are those Buccaneers, and they're 5-1 in their last 6 games, unlike the Eagles. So these two teams come in completely different sides of the story entering the wild card weekend. But I think this Bucs team could make some noise in the playoffs if they get this first win. They could face, they'll face the highest seed remaining, I guess, if no upsets occur in the NFC. So they would get the Niners on the road, which would be a very tough game. But the Bucs, if they can play and possibly get the 2 seed or a 3 seed, then I think they might have a chance to make some noise to get the NFC Championship game. 12 are the Steelers, and they found a way to get a win in Baltimore to get into the playoffs. But do they really have a chance now that they're in the playoffs to run the table? First, they got to go to Buffalo and beat Buffalo. Not looking good there because the quarterback play has been iffy all year long. Rudolph's had some good games as of late, but is it going to be enough to upset the Bills? 11 are my Packers, and this team really played well the last 2 weeks to get into the playoff, and that's because Jordan Love has been awesome this last month of the season. He's 32 passing touchdowns, I think, this year. Top 5 in the league passing touchdown wise, and Packers looks like they've got a good guy for the future heading into it. But for this playoffs, I'm pretty confident, honestly, that the Cowboys can upset the Cowboys just because the Cowboys struggles in the playoffs in recent years. Their record against the Cowboys since 2010 is 8-1, so they have their number. And the only question, though, for me is the secondary. Are they going to be able to stop CeeDee Lamb? At 10 are the Houston Texans. They only beat the Colts by 4, but a win is a win, and they got in, and they're the 4 seed. So they host the Browns this week. I think this is going to be the best game of the week. The first game of the weekend is the Texans-Browns, and I think this is the biggest coin flip game of the playoffs, but if Stroud can win this game, who knows? Maybe this Texans team is just going to run the table. 9 are the Dolphins, and I probably could have put them lower here, but I'm giving them some respect because this team is struggling. They're 1-5 against teams above 500, and all these teams in the playoffs are above 500. So if you look at stats, they're a one and done here. Should lose in Arrowhead to the Chiefs, and Tyreek Hill doesn't get his revenge for the second time this year. And they had Mostert and Jalen Waddle not play last week. Hopefully it was just precautionary because they were already in. And hopefully they get them back this week. But the defense just keeps taking hits, players out for the year and getting hurt. And at some point it's got to give. And I think this might be the week where the Chiefs explode on this Dolphins defense. 8 are the Rams. And the Rams come into the playoffs probably one of the hottest teams. 7-1 since their bye week in week 10. Kyron Williams has been awesome since he's returned in week 14. And if they can throw the ball around how they want against Detroit, don't be too surprised if the Rams upset the Lions. But this is the first time these two teams will play since the Stafford and Goff trade. Those Browns are at 7. And this is going to be the case of Joe Flacco, what he can do in the playoffs after leading this team to the playoffs. Can they run the table in the AFC and be that dark horse team? We'll have to see. I think America's rooting for this team to succeed this year just because of how good they have been in the recent weeks, and this defense is no joke. The Bills are coming in at 6, and that's because they've won 5 in a row entering the playoffs, and that gets them the 2 seed after beating the Dolphins on Sunday night. Can they stay hot, or are they going to fizzle out? I think they at least beat the Steelers, so there's my preview for the picks this week. I got this Bills beating the Steelers, but it's going to come down to Josh Allen and his turnovers. I know last week he had 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions, and a fumble. But if he can stay at 1 turnover or less, I think this Bills team really does have a chance to win it all. The Chiefs come in at 5, and they could be lower just because of this team just not being the same Chiefs team we've seen in recent years. But this is the team that goes to the AFC Championship almost every year. The past, I think, 4 years they've been to the AFC Championship, 5 years, it's one of those two. And the question is Mahomes going to lead this team to the promised land? If he does, then I think you might have the argument that Mahomes probably has the best playoff career or resume of all time besides Tom Brady, obviously, because what he's done in the short amount of time getting to the AFC Championship every year. I know he only has 2 Super Bowls on his name, but, don't be surprised if he's up there. 4 are the Detroit Lions. This team was really good in the middle of the year. Then they took a huge step back, started getting their footing again, got good again. Then had a very disappointing loss to the Packers on Thanksgiving. And then they started to find their footing. And then the Lions lost on that 2-point conversion to the Cowboys. So this team has been close almost every time this year to possibly being that top team. And I think they are going to be that top team. Not when it's all said and done. I'm saying that when they come out of this year, no matter if they win the Super Bowl, lose NFC Championship, or even lose this week, I think it's a very successful year. Winning the division first time since 1993. And this, like I mentioned earlier, this is the first time that Stafford and the Rams will face Goff and the Lions after that trade in 2021. But their biggest question heading into the playoffs, can this secondary hold up against the top weapons? And this week is going to be a big tell to see if this team can make the run or if they're getting knocked out in the first round. 3 are the Cowboys, and this team, I think it feels like it's the best team they've had in the Mike McCarthy era, and since they've made it to the playoffs, they're the 2 seed, they get the Packers at home, it's all right in front of them. They wouldn't have to face the Niners till the NFC Championship game, and when you have 16 straight home wins dating back to last year, it's tough to beat this team in their own place, and the Cowboys, well, if that's the case, they might get to the NFC Championship and then have to go on the road. But if the Niners somehow lose in the divisional round, the Cowboys could very well end up hosting an NFC Championship game. And let's flip to the other side of it. If McCarthy loses this game to the Packers, he might get fired just because Jerry Jones is tired of losing in the divisional round every single year. At 2 are the Niners, and they're the NFC favorite to win it all, and also Vegas's team to win it all. We're going to see what team we're going to get here, because last year, obviously, they were playing really good, and then that Philly game, Purdy got hurt, the backup got hurt, they just didn't show up, and I think they still have that on their mind. Purdy is all the weapons in the world. He's got CMC, obviously, you've run CMC or bust on there, because I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be the key to this team if they want to make a deep run. And at 1, of course, I have the Baltimore Ravens, best team in football currently and has been in the last month of the season. They're the AFC favorites to win it all. And can John Harbaugh win a Super Bowl the same year his brother Jim wins the college football playoff? That'd be a cool story if both the Harbaugh brothers can get it done. But their biggest question is Lamar. Lamar in his playoffs, in his 4 playoff starts, he's 1-3 in those starts. And, it's kind of a little bit cause for concern, but let's say they win the Super Bowl this year. That's 3 wins, and he's 4-3 in the playoffs with a Super Bowl title. Nothing to knock on his record. But this defense, man, they have been really good. Obviously, a few weeks ago on Christmas, they just destroyed the Niners and really didn't let them do anything. And if that's the case against one of the best offenses in football, it's going to be tough to beat this Ravens defense. But that's going to be it for my playoff power rankings. Check back to see our picks for the wild card round. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.